How you doing, guys? I just upgraded my Rapid Composer to version 5.5.1, and I found a new function or new capability in Rapid Composer. I'm not sure if it came in a little bit before this upgrade that I made today, but it's very recent in any event, I think. And I was playing around with it and I kind of stumbled on something that I thought was kind of a eureka moment, at least for me. So let me share this with you before I mess it up and forget what I did and all that kind of thing. So basically, I started with I dragged in a simple chord progression. It's 4 bars long. It's in 4-part harmony. Okay, so we got soprano, tenor, alto, and bass. And of course, like most of these chord progressions you get off, these Midi files, all 4 parts are in the same, are on the same track, they're on the same channel. So you all know that, right? So let's just listen to this thing. Okay, real nice chord progression. All right, so here's the capability that Rapid Composer has, and I think this is really unique, at least, to the extent that any other program has it, they don't have it implemented as well as Rapid Composer, and the function or the capability is not nearly as flexible. You might be able to do something in Cubase with the logical editor, but it's nowhere near what you can do here. And then the other thing that came to mind was Divisimate. Kind of does this in a sense, but again, it's not as flexible. And Divisimate is really designed for someone who's playing a keyboard, and the Divisimate kind of sits in between your MIDI controller, your keyboard, and your software, and it kind of it kind of lets you route, let's say, the top note line to like one track or one channel, and the next, what would be the alto voice, to another channel. You kind of get the idea. So Divisimate advertises itself as kind of like an automatic orchestrator for someone playing the keyboard, and that's what Divisimate does. Okay, so what about Rapid Composer? What have we got here? Well, if you right click on your track with the chord progression, or any MIDI file for that matter, you're going to get this. Well, you know what? Let me do it on this track because it's empty. So you'll see these tabs here, right? And this lets you do different things to the track. Like, for instance, if you want to change the instrument, you wanted to put some kind of VST, but it's got Rapid Composer lets you do a myriad of different things on a track level, all right? But here's the one we're interested in. It's called note forwarding. And this is actually, at first blush, you might say, well, what's that? And actually, it's incredibly simple. As soon as you look at it, you hit this plus sign, and then you get this. Here's your list. These are the way. What this does is it takes notes from one track and copies them to another track. But it allows you to decide which notes you're going to copy. Now, of course, you could do this by hand, but it's bloody tedious. So that's what this function basically does. And you can see here, so you've got all these ways of splitting out notes to other tracks. But the essential ones are going to be notes below a certain range, notes above. Uh, I see. I didn't even see this. So, in addition to forwarding notes to other tracks, it allows you to transpose notes up. So this is a real powerful orchestration tool. You guys out there that, are good orchestrators or aspiring orchestrators, I mean, this is something that could get really interesting. I don't, this isn't my wheelhouse at all. But, let's say you're into brass instruments or something like that, and you understand, you know, the range of trumpets and trombones and tubas and all that kind of thing. You might want to play around with some Midi tracks and, orchestrate them for your brass section, okay? Obviously, this would apply to any orchestral, winds, whatever. But these two first capabilities would be probably, in other words, you're keeping the notes on the same track, but you're transposing them up and down. So let's say, you want to, you've got a certain line. Let's say what in 4-part harmony we would call like the tenor line, right? And we want to pull that down, for tubas or something like that. You get the idea, okay? As I said, I'm not an orchestrator, but some of you out there, I'm sure, are. So, you can play around with that. That's going to help you. But what I'm more interested in is this forwarding notes to other tracks, and you'll see why I'm kind of keen on that. So, it's really simple. You get this thing here, and you just put your MIDI number. You can double click and put it in, and this will tell you what track you want to forward it to. All right, so you want to put in some blank tracks here and probably give them names so it's clear where you're going. So one simple thing would just be make 4 blank tracks. I'm sorry, 5 tracks. Okay, put your put the MIDI file that you're going to use for forwarding. You're going to split out. Okay, let's call it that. The MIDI file that you're going to split out to different tracks. Put that on the top track, and then maybe create 4 tracks. Call them soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Okay, if we're dealing with 4-part harmony. Of course, if you're dealing with jazz and you've got ninths and stuff like that, just make more tracks, call them what you want. You could call them, ninths. I mean, whatever floats your boat on that, okay? It really doesn't matter. It's going to work. But, you're going to use these track names for the forwarding. And once you put them in, you'll see under here, you'll see the list. Now, what I did, I just created tracks. I didn't even bother to change the names. So they're all like stereo grand, but they're actually in order. So the way Rapid Composer does it is stereo grand. The top one is number 1. The second one is 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 tracks. There's 5 stereo grands. So it's actually, you don't even need to change the name. I mean, but it might not be a bad idea. So, you can play with this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You can do ranges of notes or notes below, notes above, right? So you'll see. Now you could do velocity or length. I'm not going to discuss that. These other functions, they may have a really good place, but we'll leave that. All right. So, that's the function, right? Now, okay. So that's what I did. I created, we got 4-part harmony, and, I created 4 tracks. So I got my this one where the notes are red. By the way, Rapid Composer changes the color of these notes, which I really appreciate. That helps to distinguish, the different, soprano, alto, tenor, bass thing. So here you can see this stereogram track. The red ones are soprano, right? And if you look up here, you can see this line up here is the top line, and so it forwarded the top notes to this track, and then you add more and more of these functions to accommodate each soprano, alto, tenor, bass, or so on and so forth. If you have ninths, 11ths, 13ths, whatever you got, you're gonna to break them out. In other words, for each range of notes, you need another function, another note forwarding function. So you create those just by hitting the plus sign. You get the idea. This is not complicated. It really isn't. Okay, so I broke my notes out into 4 tracks. So we got our soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Now, obviously, if you look here on the alto line, you're going to say, well, what do you mean? I mean, this isn't. These orange notes are, there's all kinds of stuff going on here, 16ths and eighths and whatnot, and that doesn't correspond to the alto line up here, which is really very simple. Actually, it's just 2 notes. It's a D, and then we've got these C's, D4, C's, and a D, right? That's the simple alto line. So what are you doing, or what's all this about? And here is what I got excited about, and I wanted to share before I forgot it, or somehow, sometimes you find something and then you can't find your way back to it. So that's why I'm doing this video. All right. So what I did here is I wanted to see if I had the idea that, well, let me just take this alto line and change the rhythm a little bit. So in order to do that, you basically, what I did was I right click on the phrase. I'll do it up here just to give you an example. You right click on the phrase, and then you go to this gear, and you got to do 2 things. You got to do render phrase with variation and voicing. So click on that, right? All right. And that now you see it's rendered, but it doesn't change anything. Then what I did, and here was where the magic was, I said, in addition, after doing that, rendering this phrase, I said, convert it to a phrase generator, all right? Because what I wanted to do was change the rhythm a little bit. I wanted to basically keep the notes, but see if I could just change the rhythm, and I was going to use one of the kind of rhythm, tools in Rapid Composer, and Rapid Composer has got more, just incredible amount of tools for changing rhythms. But I ended up selecting Motive Generator just kind of by accident. I thought, all right, I'll, because you got a choice here, right, of these different generators. So I could have selected, obviously I didn't want Dyad's Run Generator or chord. Maybe bass would have worked, or I didn't want arpeggiator because I was thinking, I have a monophonic line, well, arpeggiator could have worked, true. But anyway, I selected the Motive Generator down here. And I selected that, and then you click, and that turns this phrase into a Motive Generator. Okay, and when I did that, boy, oh boy, look what I ended up with. Now, listen to this. And this is all algorithmic. Everything I did was algorithmic. I didn't move any notes or edit any notes or nothing. So listen to this. I'll turn off, I'll mute the original chord progression on track 1, right? So I muted that, and now we can hear the soprano, alto, tenor, bass lines. In other words, the 4-part harmony. Think of it like a, let's bring ourselves back to Bach, right? I mean, we got 4-part chorale, all right? That's what we got here. But Bach has decided to give the alto line, he a special, a special melody here, special counterpoint, right? So listen to this. I mean, that just blew me away, because I guess what the motive generator is doing is it knows what chord notes to play. I don't know if it's playing any passing tones or what. Let's just leave that question aside for a minute. But man, oh man, I mean, that line fits perfectly into this chord progression. There's no dissonance between this alto line and the soprano, the tenor, and the bass. So I'll play it one more time. Okay, so essentially, I mean, it's turned the alto line into a really rhythmic melody. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I just thought, wow, on 2 levels. Well, on the first level, I always wanted some. I actually communicated with the developer a ways back, and I mentioned how cool a function like this would be. And he's unbelievable. I mean, he implemented it and did it in a way that I couldn't have even hoped for or imagined. But I really wasn't thinking beyond just breaking the notes out. I guess what I thought, when I was thinking about this function, I thought it would just be really cool if you could break the notes out and then orchestrate your 4 parts with different like a nice contact string library, right? So you'd be able to on the top track you'd put your violins, then on the alto track you put your viola, your tenor track you put your cello, and then on the bottom track you'd put your bass. And I thought, the sonic, the whole sound would be richer. You'd have like 4 different contact instruments. You'd have more ability to kind of play with them. Maybe change the articulation a little bit. Like the bass, the articulation might be just a little different. You could obviously change the velocity and whatever. I mean, I just saw it as an orchestration tool, and it certainly is this capability is a powerful orchestration tool. And again, I mean, put in the comments if you know any other software that can do this. I haven't come across it, not at all. So I think it's just really cool. But this ability now that once you break the notes out, to be able to manipulate these lines, with these different motive generators and things like that. I mean, wow, to me, the proof is in the pudding. And what I've got here, I don't think was just some crazy, coincidence or crazy piece of luck that, this alto line was just all diatonic. I mean, you could do this with the other lines as well, and get some pretty. I'm guessing you can get some pretty cool counterpoint going here. So I'm excited about this capability. I love Rapid Composer. And by the way, I have Synfire behind here, and I love Synfire too. Synfire is amazing. It's a very different program, but it's got its own um, extremely unique features, particularly in its ability to allow you to create like an incredible library, your own library of chord progressions and really anything. I mean, you can create a library of uh, attributes, you name it, anything to do with like digital music. I mean, it's unbelievable. In fact, anyway, I don't want to get off on that. Um, but I'm just a huge fan of Rapid Composer and Synfire. I recommend getting both of them. I mean, I've just had so much fun with them. And even if you're not a composer, if you just like to fiddle with this stuff, man, these two pieces of software have given me a lot of joy. They really have. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you all. And I'll see you in the next one whenever I get around to it, or whenever I think I've got something, worth sharing. Okay? Take care.